I've been trying to market a new video editor that I built myself, and this hasn't exactly been smooth sailing all the way through, even though personally I of course believe this to be a very good software. There's this famous saying in startup scene that you should sell before you build, meaning that you should first determine that your software is actually wanted before you actually even start to build anything. But as an engineer, I would much rather just build something that is so good that it will just go viral naturally, and I don't have to worry about the marketing so much. So how's that going? Well, it honestly could be worse. My app is now up to over 500 downloads across Windows, Linux, and Mac. Of course, these are all free downloads, so I haven't been paid 1 cent for this. But it's a start, and actually there has been like 150 in the past week, so it's going up a little bit. And one thing that has actually really helped me in the past week to get some momentum has been that I decided to open source what I think is the best part of my app. So this is Video Smart Cut. This is a library and command line tool that can do frame accurate cutting of video where you copy most of the video losslessly. And the reception has been really nice. I launched this like a week ago and has already gained 70 stars, which if you compare it to the 500 downloads that my main app has, the open source library that I spent basically not that much time on because it's already part of the app has already 70 engagements. Also, if you look at the YouTube channel for Smart Media Cutter, you can see that the video about open sourcing this library is my best performing video with about 200 views. And this is despite me using some advertising money to promote some of the other videos that showcase the features in the GUI application. But of course, as a marketing strategy, you can only really say this is working if it leads to visits of the website and downloads of the app, so some conversions. So for that, let's look at the Google Analytics as well. So here are the results for smartmediacutter.com over the past 28 days. If we just look at the raw amount of users, you can see that there was a pretty significant bump, which incidentally was just around the time when I launched the library. So the daily active users went from about 5 to 10 to about 20 to 30, which is a massive bump, of course. And on the list of traffic sources, you can see that number one is github.com, supporting the theory that a lot of this traffic was driven by the open source release. Then second one is Google, and third one is alternative2.net, which funnily enough launched my app on the website around the same time as I did the open source release, even though I didn't tell them about my app or anything. They just did it on their own. However, I'm not sure if there was any causality between me doing the open source release and it getting up on alternative2.net, or if it was just a coincidence and they just randomly happened at about the same time. Also, sadly enough, YouTube has not been a very good source of traffic for me so far, sitting on the 4th place over here with only 14 visits over the past month, but I still plan to do more content here and hopefully it's gonna start growing eventually. I just did another video where I go over my experience with YouTube promotions, so paying for YouTube to show your videos more, and how they did not really work in my case. So if you're interested in trying to grow your YouTube channel, maybe check that video out as well. I really believe that eventually YouTube can be a good source of traffic and good source of brand awareness for my editor. However, doing YouTube correctly and seriously is a whole another can of worms and almost another job. So it's definitely not for every project. So do I think open sourcing part of my app has been a successful marketing strategy? Yeah, I do think so, but there are of course some considerations. First of all, you need to have some piece of tech that is unique enough that it actually adds value as a new open source offering. In my case, that was the smart cutting part of my app, which is sort of a unique selling point of my app. It hasn't really been done to the same level of quality as I've done it. So basically, I'm just giving away the best, the most polished, and the most unique thing about my app. And that's definitely a thing to consider. Like, are you willing to do that? Because I feel like in order to gain any traction from the open source, you do actually have to give away something valuable. That's the whole point of kind of giving away your best stuff. But of course, when you give away your most polished pieces of software, you are kind of eroding your competitive advantage. So that is something to consider. Another thing to consider is, will your app become easily clonable once you have given away the most unique parts of it? In my case, the app is a full graphical video editor and the library is just a tool for cutting videos. So eventually I reached a point in development where I believe that just giving away the video cutting itself is not gonna make the UI easily clonable, because there is quite a lot of work just in polishing all of the UI flow. And I've sort of come to the understanding that making a good video editor is about providing a lot of tools for a lot of people, where each people just uses maybe one or two of them. And for the software itself to become popular enough to reach some sort of critical mass, it needs to provide a lot of things for a lot of people. So that's why I can just focus on integrating more and more stuff, and giving away even the most important piece on its own is not really a big deal. Another point to consider is how likely is it that anybody is going to contribute to your project. So this is something that is often repeated as a real selling point of open sourcing things, is that, oh, people are going to contribute to your project and help make it better. So I find that in this regard, it's useful to look at other similar projects to yours. So for example, here is Auto Editor, which has been in development for at least 4 years. And this has grown to 1,500 commits. And if you look through this, you will see that it's almost exclusively commits by the main author, Wyatt Blue. So on the first page, there is one collaborative commit, which is just 2 lines of adding some configuration, which is really kind of almost worthless in terms of really saving the energy and time of the main author. And even worse, if we go look at the pull requests, you will see that there's 98 closed pull requests, but almost all of them are also by the main author. So this one was the one that we just looked at. Then there are a couple of rejected ones and some README edits. And there's one other pull request that is not by the main author. And this one actually looks like it's a legit change, although it's also basically just some busy work. So basically in the last about a year, Wyatt Blue has received like maybe one sort of useful helping hand. So let's look at another sort of comparable video editor repository. So this here is Lossless Cut, which is a fairly popular open source video editor. With 26,000 stars, you would for sure hope that this is sort of community developed at least a little bit, right? Well, again, when we go to look at the commit history, you will see that it's almost exclusively commits by the main author, or in this case, some translations. And while community translations are of course nice, I would argue that it's not perhaps adding quite enough value to just throw everything into open source. Especially if you consider that doing open source properly is also a time investment on the development side. And just to reiterate this point, I went through the list of contributors to Lossless Cut, and when you look at all of these people with lots of commits, they are exclusively translations. And I think I went through all the way to people with like 4 commits or something, and it was only translations. So even though this is a project with 26,000 stars on GitHub, there are no regular code contributors besides the main author. And in all of the issues and discussions that I looked at, the author seems nice, so I don't think it's like a personality thing or like rejecting pull requests and that sort of thing. I think it's just that video editors are complex software, and there aren't that many people who are interested in contributing in something like this. Another point I've thought about when considering if I should open source more of my app is that it has sort of a freemium model where there's a free trial that you can use as much as you like and it's on your computer, but there are some limitations such as trial pop-ups and maybe some other locked features further down the road. And if I was to do a full open source release of the graphical app itself, of course it would be very easy to just remove all of those limiters that sort of distinguish the premium version from the free version. And maybe you could do some sort of split where all of the free versions are open source, but the premium versions are not. But I feel like that would be very difficult to do in terms of the code structure, and everything would just be worse off. So in summary, do I think open source is a good marketing strategy for software projects? Yeah, I would say so. It worked pretty nicely for me. I was actually kind of positively surprised by the reception, especially compared to like my normal numbers. The open source part is actually pulling quite nice numbers at this point in time. Of course, I hope that the graphical app, once it has a little bit more momentum, a little bit more word of mouth, it's gonna dwarf these numbers that the open source side can pull. But it has been a nice way of just finding a couple early adopters, getting some early feedback. Overall, it has been a quite nice experience. And I don't feel like I gave away much. I didn't spend that much time, building out the code base or anything. I just basically moved a couple of files to different part of the structure. I am also not expecting that many people are gonna want to contribute to my open source part. Maybe there's a little chance of that happening because what I did open source is sort of pretty self-contained, pretty nice little piece that can be like generally useful, I feel like. So maybe there is some chance that somebody wants to make that piece a little bit better and wants to also contribute those changes back. I'm not really counting on that though, and for me the open sourcing was kind of purely marketing move. And I think if you're counting on other people fixing your software, you might be disappointed. So anyway, that's all for now. These were just some of my musings on open source and using open source as marketing strategy. If you found this video helpful, please leave a thumbs up. And have you tried open sourcing something, and how was your experience with the community? Or maybe you have a software and you're thinking about if you should or should not open source it. Please leave a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.